You walk into the kitchen. You had a reason. You know you had a reason. And then, standing in the middle of the room, it's gone. Not fuzzy, not fading, gone. You retrace your steps. You walk back to the living room, and there it is again, sitting in your mind exactly where you left it, waiting for you like it never left at all. This happens to almost everyone. Students forget mid-sentence why they opened a textbook. Parents forget why they walked into the nursery. Executives stand in doorways, blinking, holding an empty thought. Even people with sharp, well-trained memories experience this, which is strange, because it doesn't behave like normal forgetting. For decades, people assumed this was simple absent-mindedness, a tired brain, a distracted mind. But the real answer is far stranger, and it has almost nothing to do with how forgetful you are. It has to do with doors. Specifically, it has to do with what a door does to your brain the instant you walk through it. In 2011, a psychologist named Gabriel Radvansky, working at the University of Notre Dame, set out to test something odd. He wondered if the room itself was the problem, not distraction, not memory decay, the architecture. His team built a virtual environment. Participants walked through simulated rooms, picking up and putting down objects, sometimes crossing through a doorway, sometimes just walking the same distance across a single room. Same number of steps, same amount of time, same mental effort. The only difference was whether a threshold was crossed. But something changed the moment a doorway was involved. People forgot more, significantly more. Walking through a doorway made memories harder to retrieve, even though nothing about the physical act of walking was different. Radvansky repeated the experiment in real physical rooms, just to rule out any trick of virtual reality. The effect held there too. He called it plainly the doorway effect. Researchers now sometimes call it location updating, but the nickname stuck for a reason. It's memorable, and, fittingly, easy to walk right past. But why would a door do that? To understand it, you have to understand how your brain organizes your life. Not as one continuous stream, like a movie playing start to finish. Your brain doesn't work that way. It works in chunks. Psychologist Jeffrey Sachs at Washington University in St. Louis has spent years studying how people mentally slice their experiences into segments. He calls it event segmentation. Every day, without you noticing, your brain is constantly asking a quiet background question. Is this still the same event, or has something new begun? Making coffee is an event. Answering the phone is a new one. Walking to your car is an event. Driving is another. Your brain builds a kind of folder for each one. It stuffs that folder with the goals, objects, and thoughts relevant to that moment. And when it decides the event has ended, it closes the folder, sometimes before you finished using what's inside it. A doorway is one of the clearest signals your brain has ever evolved to recognize as an event boundary. Think about what a doorway represented for most of human history. Not a hallway shortcut, a transition between two entirely different situations, outside to inside, safety to exposure, one group of people to another. Your ancestors who crossed a threshold weren't just changing scenery. They were potentially changing risk, changing resources, changing what mattered for survival in that exact instant. A brain that treated every doorway as a meaningful shift, worth flushing old information to make room for new information, would have had a real advantage. Old goals, the location of a fire, the direction danger came from, could be safely set aside. New goals, what's in this new space, who's here, what's different, could take priority immediately, without hesitation. That ancient sorting instinct never went away. It's still running, right now. Every single day, dozens of times, quietly, without asking your permission. So when you walk from the living room into the kitchen, your brain isn't being lazy. It's doing exactly what it was built to do. It treats the doorway as the end of one event and the beginning of another. And your intention, the reason you got up in the first place, was filed inside the folder for the room you just left. You didn't lose the memory. You closed the folder it was living in. This is where it gets even stranger. Radvansky ran a follow-up study specifically testing whether returning to the original room would help people remember. And it did. Walking back into the room where the thought first formed noticeably improved recall. Not perfectly, and not for everyone equally, but enough to matter, and enough to replicate across multiple versions of the experiment. Why would simply standing in a different location bring a lost thought rushing back? This connects to a much older idea in psychology, one that predates the doorway effect by decades. In the 1970s, a researcher named Endel Tulving proposed something called the encoding specificity principle. The idea is simple, but powerful. Memories aren't stored as isolated facts floating loosely in your head. They're stored linked to the context you were in when you formed them. The lighting, the sounds, the smell of the room, even your posture, or what you happen to be holding at the time. Change the context, and you can accidentally cut the thread connecting you to the memory. Restore the context, and the thread often reappears on its own, without any conscious searching at all. That's why standing back in the living room can hand your forgotten thought right back to you. You didn't search for it. You didn't force it. You simply stepped back into the folder where it was filed, and your brain reopened it automatically. The way a familiar smell can suddenly return you to a memory you hadn't thought about in years. Here's the detail almost nobody expects. This effect isn't limited to physical doorways at all. Zach's and other researchers studying event segmentation have found that even imagined doorways can trigger it. In one experiment, people were asked to picture walking through a door in their mind, without moving an inch, without leaving their chair. Their recall for information tied to the previous mental room still dropped, measurably, compared to people who imagined walking the same distance without a door involved. The forgetting wasn't about your legs moving. It was about your brain deciding a boundary had occurred, purely as a mental event. Which means this isn't really about kitchens and door frames at all. It's about transitions. Any transition. Closing a laptop and opening a new tab. Ending one phone call and starting another. Walking out of a meeting, into a hallway conversation. Stepping off an elevator. Each one can function as a tiny doorway. A small architectural cliff edge your brain uses to decide what gets kept in working memory and what gets filed away as finished business. Have you ever opened your phone with a clear purpose, gotten pulled away by a notification, and then immediately forgotten what you opened it for in the first place? That's the same mechanism, running on a screen instead of a hallway. A boundary event, digital instead of physical, quietly closing the folder before you were finished with it. Some researchers now believe this is one of the reasons modern digital life feels so mentally fragmented. It isn't only that notifications distract you, it's that every app switch, every new tab, every ping, functions as a miniature doorway, and your brain treats each one as licensed to file away whatever you were just holding on to. There's a reassuring side to all of this, though, one that's easy to miss in the frustration of the moment. The doorway effect isn't a flaw in your memory system. It's evidence that your memory system is doing exactly what it evolved to do, filtering aggressively, keeping the folder for right now clean and uncluttered, so you have room to react quickly to whatever new situation you've just stepped into. A brain that never closed a single folder, that dragged every old goal through every new doorway, would drown in irrelevant information within a single afternoon. Forgetting in this specific sense is a feature bought at a small, occasional, and slightly embarrassing cost. Knowing this even changes what you can do about it. Instead of standing in the kitchen straining to force the memory to appear, the far more effective move, according to Radvansky's own findings, is simply to walk back to where the thought began. Not to think harder, to return to the room. Let the context do the remembering for you. So the next time you find yourself standing somewhere with an empty mind and a vague sense that you were just doing something important, you're not broken. You're not getting older in some alarming way. You are running a piece of software so old it predates language, so old it was shaped by ancestors who needed to reset their attention every single time they crossed into unfamiliar ground. Your brain isn't failing you in that moment. It's protecting you the exact same way it protected someone standing at the mouth of a cave, tens of thousands of years ago, deciding in an instant that whatever came before this threshold mattered a little less than whatever was about to come through it. You walked into the kitchen. You had a reason. And somewhere, in the room you just left, it's still waiting patiently for you to walk back and find it. If you watched this video up till this point, it probably means you enjoy learning about human biology, psychology, and evolution. Subscribe to this channel to support it and keep videos like this showing up in your feed. And if you've ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why, tell it in the comments. Your brain might be doing something more ancient than you think.